Blood alone moves the wheels of history. Wait, no, stop. What am I thinking? That's terrible. I'm quoting from a long-canceled television show. Dwight Schrute quoting Jim Halpert, quoting Benito Mussolini, of all people. This isn't Dwight's speech, this is Rainn's speech, right? Okay. And you're not here to commemorate being Salesman of the Year or to increase paper sales or beet growth in northern Utah. You're here to give a memorable speech, okay, to these amazing new graduates of Weber State University. Yes, dub it up, people. I am so honored to be asked to speak to you all today. I've spoken to many groups before, in many ways before, but never a graduation speech. I've done best man speeches, award show speeches, marriage proposal speeches, well, speech, acceptance speeches, locker room speeches, and that was a little bit awkward because I wasn't even on the team and I didn't even play lacrosse. I just happened to walk into the locker room with my shirt off. But I digress. I have done farewell speeches, campaign speeches, and even Shakespearean monologues. Oh, that this too sullied flesh should melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. No, really, stop, that's enough. But what to say to 4,000 brilliant graduating Wildcats? I mean, and a couple other 100 idiot Wildcats that really should not even be allowed to graduate at this ceremony, and you know who you are. And I really need to talk to President Brad L. Mortensen about that. Brad L. Mortensen. So what are we going to talk about in our brief time together? Well, I was wondering in what I could possibly relate to you all. I went back and forth on the many varieties of uplifting graduation speeches, heartwarming anecdotes and platitudes about finding your path after college, advice about making your way in the world. No. I've got something bigger and better in store for you. That's what she said. Let's face it, I'm old, I've been through a lot, I've suffered, I've pounded my head against a wall, both literally and figuratively. I've tried a lot of things and failed at a lot of things. I spent many years as an unemployed dirt broke actor, barely making the rent. And for every show like The Office, I've done a dozen TV pilots, programs, movies, and projects that never got off the ground and that no one ever saw. Once, as a child, I wanted to see what life was like for my pet turtle, and I drank from my terrarium and threw up for 2 days straight. No. Actually, I was 27 at the time. I have personally, in all truth, in all honesty, I've personally wrestled with a number of mental health issues, many of which plague this younger generation in these perilous times. I've dealt with bouts of depression and loneliness and issues around addiction and the granddaddy of them all, anxiety. And I have struggled with the darkness, and for the most part, I've learned how to overcome and navigate these issues. So in other words, I've gained a lot of what us oldster boomers would call wisdom over the years, and although there are a lot of important questions about the world out there to ponder, I'm going to share something I, lowly sitcom actor and author Rainn Wilson, have managed to figure out. A topic that has flummoxed seers and prophets and philosophers for eons. I am going to bestow upon you all here today the meaning of life. That's right. That's right. I'm going to bestow the meaning of life. And I got to hurry. I've only got 18 minutes at this point. So, everything I'm about to espouse begins with the all-important supposition that was best articulated by Father Teilhard de Chardin when he said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." So, yeah, give it up for Father Teilhard de Chardin. So, meaning of life, Rainn's guideline number 1. gather a bouquet of virtues. You know when you meet an old person, you ever basically notice there's only one of two kinds? They're either sweet and wise and loving, or else they're grumpy and flinty and kind of mean. And I always think to myself, Rainn, make sure you end up like the first kind of senior citizen. The one with the kind, wrinkly, wise eyes where you can kind of see their soul shining through. And make sure to not end up like a grumpy old jerk face like President Brad L. Mortensen. Or Commissioner Jeff Landward. Okay, switching gears a little bit. Remember those bumper stickers from the 80s with the acronym WWJD? What would Jesus do? Well, I would posit that instead of WWJD, I would make the bumper sticker WWCD or WWBD. What would Charlie do, or what would Brittany do? Because Charlie or Brittany or John or Reza or Javier or any of you, any of us, might not be able to perfectly enact the profound holiness of Jesus Christ. I mean, I doubt that Brittany can walk on water or Charlie can raise the dead. However, what we can do is attempt to emulate some of his holiness's better qualities, the ones we heard about in all those wonderful, beautiful Sunday school stories: kindness, humility, service, joy, forgiveness, wisdom, and honesty. Most call these qualities spiritual virtues. And mind you, if you're not of a spiritual bent, you can simply refer to them as positive character traits or leadership qualities. Now, let's do a little exercise. Picture each one of these virtues as a beautiful little flower in a bouquet. Compassion is a rose, love is a lily, etc. When we pass away, you know what? We don't take with us our Teslas or our Xboxes. At the very end of our lives, if in fact we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, we take with us only one thing: that bouquet of internal character qualities we've nurtured, gathered, and exercised over the course of our lives. Now, at the end of the day, yes, at the end of the day, we don't want that bouquet to be a pathetic little clump of undernourished, withered little dried out flowers like Ebenezer Scrooge or Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. We want it to be glorious, verdant, and aromatic. And by the way, and this is what's most important, these qualities can be exercised in the exact same way we grow our muscles in the gym. Christian theologian Tolbert McCarroll once said, "Virtue is the muscle tone in the daily and hourly training of a spiritual warrior." Notice the virtues around you when they're being utilized, both by yourself and by others. Flex them. Consciously focus on developing them. Create an exercise plan for your character qualities. Instead of leg day, have one day a week be compassion day. Instead of cardio in the mornings, work out your morning gratitude. Do this, and not only will Charlie or Brittany or Javier or Reza end up like one of those sweet old people with the kind crinkly eyes, kind of like Creed from The Office, but you'll be taking with you on your ongoing spiritual journey what you most need: a radiant soul decorated with flowers from the divine garden. There's a relatively new field of study that I highly recommend that you all learn a little bit about. It's called positive psychology. Now, for 100 years, psychology was all about the disease model, how screwed up, unhappy, and neurotic we all were. And then, in a distant time known as the 1990s, psychologists started to examine what worked about being a human being, what made us happier, more successful, more connected, more content. The godfather of positive psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman, boiled happiness down to three things to pursue, three dimensions of well-being. The first is the pleasant life, which is where we learn to savor and appreciate such basic pleasures of life. Mindfulness around our bodily needs, our sensations, and our environment. And many people in the contemporary world, well, what happens is they can remain pleasantly stuck in this stage for their entire life. But hopefully, one can graduate to experience Dr. Seligman's second dimension, the good life, which is exactly what I've been describing here: discovering and cultivating our own virtues and strengths, and using them to creatively enhance our lives. But going even farther, Seligman encourages us. His third level is called the meaningful life, in which we find a profound sense of fulfillment by using our unique strengths, our spiritual virtues, for a larger purpose, one grander than our own paltry, selfish needs. Which brings me to Rainn's Meaning of Life guideline number 2. Write this one down. Be other-centered. When the great spiritual teacher Abdu'l-Baha, from my faith tradition, the Baha'i faith, was asked how Baha'is defined Satan, he famously replied, Satan is the insistent self. The insistent self. That's right, not a creature with a pitchfork in a fiery underground cave in hell, but that niggling little selfish voice inside our brains that we've always wrestled with. The timeless internal struggle between good and evil that has been described in every great faith tradition and in a lot of Warner Brothers cartoons as well. That takes place inside of our own heads. You know, Rainn, your speech sucks. Utah hates you. This hat looks stupid. Your head looks like a giant melon. Well, at least I'm a better speaker than John Krasinski. What an idiot. It's the ego. It's the self-centered voice that compares ourselves to others, that lusts, that wants status and nonstop pleasure, that feels envy, greed for luxury and comfort, that wants to insistently put ourselves and our own needs forward. The aforementioned psychologist Seligman once did a little experiment in one of his first classes on happiness. First, he had all of his students take a happiness test to establish a baseline. And then he told them to go out one weekend and do whatever they thought would make them happier, to have maximum fun, and report back. So, what do you think a bunch of teenagers did to make themselves happier over a weekend? They reported back that they partied, they went shopping and bought stuff, they played video games, they got messed up on drugs and alcohol, they hooked up, you get the idea. They came back to class, they took that happiness test again, and they found out that their scores had, you guessed it, actually gone down. They were actually less happy than they were previously. The following weekend, Dr. Seligman asked his students that their mission now was to go out and be of service to someone else, to visit someone that was sick, to watch The Office with a depressed friend, to volunteer some time, to hold the door open or buy a coffee for someone at a Starbucks. And guess what? When they came back to class after doing this and they took the test again, that's right, they were happier and stayed happier. So, what does this and countless other studies tell us all? That basically, everything the world is telling you about finding joy is bass-ackwards. It's all a lie, don't believe it. Buying stuff, gaining social status, looking sexy, seeking distraction, partying and doing all the stuff the cool kids are doing on Instagram and on TV ads and music videos actually takes us further away from bliss. Don't buy it for a second. And that egoic voice, that little insistent self, that little devil, it fools us so easily into thinking that it has our best interest in mind, but most of the time it really doesn't. Because selfishness doesn't work, and otherishness does. Martin Luther King Jr. exhorted us by saying, every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. So I implore you to walk out of this ceremony with a decision for this next chapter of your lives, to move toward being other-centered instead of self-centered, because we need each other to undertake Meaning of Life guideline by Rainn Wilson number 3. Ready? Write this down. Live like it's Dungeons and Dragons. Recently on the Soul Boom podcast, please like, follow, and subscribe, I got to interview one of the foremost social scientists of our day and give him the definitive remedy to the mental health crisis that is eating away at your generation. Jonathan Haidt, in his new book, The Anxious Generation, breaks down the issues that smartphones and social media have brought up to plague our youth. The data is crystal clear. With the advent of smartphones, as well as the adrenalized whirligigs of Instagram and TikTok on or about after 2007, teenage mental health issues skyrocketed. Why? Well, there's so many reasons, but first and foremost, those pesky little microcomputers that live in our pockets that provide endless distraction, and the built-in social media and games that have been carefully created to cultivate dopamine hits, they separate us from each other. They keep us poking at our screens like they're little slot machines, and they've taken good old-fashioned play away from kids and teens. How can we love each other more deeply? How can we be more other-centered when these devices are insisting on our attention with nonstop alerts? They create the illusion of connection, but in actuality, they disconnect us. And hold on a second. I gotta call you back. Give me a commencement speech. This is my agent, I'll call him back. And what I got to tell best-selling, award-winning, world-esteemed professor and author Jonathan Haidt were three glorious words, true story. Dungeons and Dragons. Show of hands, I need the whole audience. How many D&D nerds out there? Okay, my people, my tribe. Because what does D&D give you? Connection. It's a group of people on a mission, working together, elbow to elbow, without any devices or machines or screens, collaborating, playing, imagining, laughing, and most importantly, slaying orcs and gathering treasure. It's a real connection. It's a bonding experience that helped me get through my troubled teens. And this is most supported by the most famous psychological study of all time called the Grant Study. Look it up. The study followed 700 Harvard men over an 85-year span and measured what made a good life, what caused them to flourish. It measured work and marriage and faith and diet and health and exercise. The list goes on and on and on. George Vaillant, who ran the study for years, famously at the end of all of it, he said, the only thing that really matters in this life is your connection to other people. It's all about relationships. I'm only half joking about Dungeons and Dragons. Anything you can possibly do to stay deeply connected to others is imperative in harnessing a life of fulfillment and meaning. E.M. Forster said, only connect, live in fragments no longer. Kids, and there's some older kids, lean on the beautiful friendships you cultivated here at your 4 years or 5 or 6 years at Weber State, and lean into ever-expanding circles of in-person relationships you make in the upcoming years. And put your damn phones away. I'm not done yet. I got 1 or 2 more. Meaning of life, guideline number 4. Devote yourself to love. Both Jesus and the hippies got one thing gloriously right. They both famously said that God is love. As the Apostle John said, whoever lives in love lives in God and God in him. And by the way, anytime I use the word love, you can quite easily substitute the word God instead. They are the same thing. And by the way, I posit to you that God is much, much closer to the concept of love than he is to any kind of grumpy old Odin man with a beard on a cloud, some kind of sky daddy. I go into this idea in great detail in my book Soul Boom in the chapter entitled The Notorious G.O.D. So what keeps us from loving each other fully? I often think about that as I go about my life. Rainn, what keeps you from living in maximum love all the time? like Jesus, like the Dalai Lama, like SpongeBob. Baha'u'llah said, you were created to show love one to another. The poet Rumi said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. What are the barriers we have put up to love? Why don't we love more? Well, here's one. Fear is one reason. Fear is the opposite of love. You literally, this is true, you literally cannot feel fear if you turn your heart to love. It's the antidote. As the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu wrote some 2,500 years ago, through love, one has no fear. We're going to try a little experiment right now, all of you. We are going to try and feel love and fear at the same time. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Do it. You can't do it. See? Dr. Arthur Brooks of Harvard quotes the neuroscience that supports this. The neuropeptide oxytocin reduces anxiety by lowering activity in the fight and flight amygdala. Oxytocin is sometimes called the love hormone and bonds us with others through, among other things, eye contact, touch, and warm interactions. So we're going to do another experiment. Look around right now at your classmates, your teachers, your friends, your relatives, everyone up there too in the cheap seats. Let's take 20 seconds right now to have a taste of those three things. Some eye contact. Do it, do it. Eye contact, a high five, a handshake, and most importantly, a warm interaction. There we go. Do it. Savor the moment. Unleash the oxytocin. Yes! What a wildcat! You're my favorite. So, as we've looked around, what stops us from loving more deeply these beautiful souls, these fellow spiritual beings having a human experience with the light and warmth of the sun all the time? Fact. Office callback. Fact. It's the illusion of separateness. We feel like we're distinct individuals having individual blobs of consciousness experience, and we're not. We are one. Do you know what Pando is? Anyone? Can I get a show of hands, people who know what Pando is? I'm not talking about Kung Fu Pando. Anyone? There's a couple up there. Good, good, good. It's the world's largest organism. That's what she said. And it's right here in your backyard. I'm not kidding. It's in Fish Lake, Utah. Here's the deal with Pando. Look it up. Google it if you don't believe me. It looks like a grove of aspen trees. 47,000 trees to be exact. In actuality, it is one organism sharing a root system and the same genetics. It protects, feeds, defends, and supports itself. It is a grove of individual trees, and yet it is one being at the exact same time. Guess where I'm going with this? That's right. That's us. Here, now. We might look like a few thousand graduates and one incredibly handsome commencement speaker, but we share one root system, the same DNA. We are actually one. Skin color, background, race and class differences, gender and sexuality, we are all one. We are all Pando, linked at the spiritual roots. So let that realization allow us to remove the barriers to love when you exit this arena and begin your lives as citizens. So look around you again. Look around again and recognize that everyone here is but one tree in an awe-inspiring, interconnected aspen grove. Going back to the great poet Rumi, love is the whole thing, and we are only pieces. Devote yourselves to the whole thing at all times. Love. So let's sum these up, the 4 guidelines we've got so far. We've got 1, gather a bouquet of spiritual virtues. Be other-centered, not self-centered. Live like it's Dungeons and Dragons. Devote yourself to love. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a bonus guideline number 5. Keep hope alive. In one of the most profound conversations I've ever had in my life, I met with the amazing acting teacher and theater director, Andre Gregory. I was in my 20s, and he would often meet with his acting students over tea at his house. He asked how I was, and at the time I grumbled despondently. I was like, oh, Andre, I don't know, the world is so crappy right now. Everything's so dark. I get depressed. I get bitter. I don't know. I just don't think anything's going to work out. He was very, very old at the time, ancient. But that didn't stop him. He reached out and grabbed my arm hard. I'll never forget this. He looked in my eyes. He said, don't do it. You can't be cynical. You can't be pessimistic. If you do, then they win. Don't you see that they want you to be cynical? They want you to be pessimistic, because if you are, you'll just sit on your couch and you won't do anything. You have to keep hope alive, show people the way, keep going, bring joy, keep hope alive. And then he sent me on my way. He's like, get out of here. I stumbled out of his house into the sunlit cobblestone streets outside, and believe it or not, I saw the world in a different way after that conversation. It changed my life. So I leave you all with that same charge. The meaning of life, Rainn's bonus guideline number 5. Keep hope alive. So as you leave this purple arena, Charlie and Brittany, Reza and John and Javier, don't give in to the bitterness, cynicism, and pessimism of these modern times. Keep hope alive, like Jesus and SpongeBob. Bring joy in your work, into your family life, into your friendships, and above all, into your service to others. And trust me, if you do, you'll be greatly rewarded. Congratulations, graduates. Thank you for having me. Thank you. President Brad J. Mortensen.